Welcome back, everyone. Ready to dive into something a little out there.
Always up for a challenge.
Today, we're taking a look at Project Bluebeam.
Ah, yes, Project Bluebeam.
The conspiracy theory, you know the one, claiming powerful elites want to fake an alien invasion.
To usher in a new world order.
Right, single religion, global government, the whole shebang. It does sound pretty wild when you put it like that.
Definitely a bit out there.
But hey, sometimes exploring these fringe ideas, even if we end up debunking them, can be a good exercise, right?
Absolutely. Helps us sharpen our critical thinking skills. Makes us more aware of how information, technology, all of that can be used.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So where did this whole blue beam thing even come from?
Well, it was popularized in the 90s by a Canadian journalist, Serge Monast.
Okay, so this guy, Monist, what was his deal?
He was deep into conspiracy theories, especially anything related to the New World Order, secret societies, that kind of stuff.
So pretty much a professional conspiracy theorist,
You could say that.
and this Project Bluebeam was his big idea.
He wrote a whole book about it in 1994, claimed NASA and the UN were in on it.
NASA, like the space folks.
According to Monast, yeah. He laid out a 4-step plan that these groups would supposedly use.
4 steps to global domination. Sounds like a recipe for disaster.
That's putting it mildly.
Okay, so what's the first step in this master plan?
Step 1, according to Monast, is to dismantle all existing religions.
Wow, that's ambitious, to say the least. How did he think they'd pull that off?
Engineered earthquakes.
Earthquakes,
Yeah, he believed they'd use earthquakes to reveal artifacts that would discredit all the major religions.
like proof that religious figures never existed or something.
Something like that. Basically evidence that would shake people's faith to the core.
Okay, I could see how that would cause some chaos, but could someone really engineer earthquakes on demand and with such precision?
We do have technologies like fracking that can induce seismic activity, but to do it on a global scale with that level of accuracy,
Seems pretty far-fetched.
it would be incredibly difficult, not to mention incredibly risky.
Right, and wouldn't those fracking operations be pretty hard to hide?
You'd think so.
So step 1 already seems a bit shaky. What about the next step in this alleged plan?
Step 2 is where things get really interesting. Monast called it the big space show.
The big space show. Sounds dramatic. What did he have in mind?
Holograms. Giant holograms projected onto the sky.
Wait, like gods and UFOs and stuff?
Exactly. He believed they'd use advanced holographic technology to create these massive, realistic images in the sky.
Okay, holographic technology's come a long way, but could they really project something that convincing on a global scale?
The sheer scale of it would be mind-boggling. Think about the power requirements, the logistics,
It would be a massive undertaking.
to say the least.
So step 2 also seems pretty implausible. What's next on the list?
Step 3 is where we enter the realm of mind control.
Mind control. Now we're really getting into science fiction territory.
Monast claimed they'd use electromagnetic waves for telepathic two-way communication, basically beaming messages directly into people's minds.
Whoa, hold on. Are we talking about full-blown thought control here? Like planting ideas and controlling people's actions?
That was the idea.
But is that even scientifically possible? I mean, I know there's been research on the effects of electromagnetic waves on the brain, but
There's a big difference between influencing mood and behavior, which is what some studies have shown is possible, and implanting specific thoughts or controlling someone's actions.
so mind control on that level is still pure speculation.
As far as we know, yes.
Okay, so steps 1, 2, and 3 all seem to rely on technology that's either beyond our capabilities or simply implausible. What about the final step in this grand scheme? How does it all come to a head?
Step 4 is the climax, the big finale, a staged alien invasion.
A fake alien invasion, seriously. That seems like a pretty big leap, even for a conspiracy theory. How would they even pull that off?
Monast believed they'd use a combination of holographic projections, advanced technology, and media manipulation to create a global panic.
So basically, a massive, coordinated illusion designed to convince the world that we're under attack by aliens.
Exactly.
And what would be the point of all this? Why go through all that trouble to stage a fake alien invasion?
To create a global crisis, a common enemy that would unite humanity under a single world government, of course.
So it's all about control. Manufacture a threat to justify seizing power.
That's the core of the theory. Exploit people's fear and panic to get them to willingly surrender their freedom.
It's a pretty bleak scenario. So they fake an alien invasion, establish a world government. What happens next? What does this new world order actually look like?
Monist went even further. He claimed they'd use advanced technology to erase people's memories of the world before the invasion.
Wait, memory wiping, are we talking about some kind of Men in Black scenario here?
Not exactly a flashy neuralizer, but Monist believed they'd use a combination of brainwashing and electromagnetic waves to essentially reset people's minds.
So people would wake up in this new world order with no recollection of their past lives.
That's what he envisioned. Blank slates, ready to be molded by the new global government.
It's a chilling thought.
It definitely is.
And once everyone's memories have supposedly been wiped, what then? What does this brave new world actually look like?
Monist described a world devoid of individual freedom, everything controlled and monitored by the state. Families dissolved, religion outlawed, any dissent ruthlessly suppressed.
Sounds like a dystopian nightmare.
Essentially, yes, a world where a select few hold absolute power over a population stripped of its memories, its freedoms, and its very humanity.
A pretty disturbing vision of the future. So this guy Monist, he puts out this book, makes these claims. What happens to him?
Well, that's where things get even stranger.
Stranger than a fake alien invasion and mass mind control.
Monist claimed he was being followed and harassed by authorities after his book was released.
Sounds like he was living in a spy thriller.
It does, doesn't it? But
Well-
then, in 1996, just 2 years after his book came out, he died suddenly. Heart attack.
He died. Just like that.
He was only 51, reportedly in good health. But naturally, a sudden death like that raises questions, especially when the person who died was claiming to expose a massive government conspiracy.
Right. It definitely adds fuel to the fire for those who believe in these kinds of theories.
Exactly.
So he dies under mysterious circumstances. Did anyone else pick up where he left off? Did anyone else investigate his claims about Project Bluebeam?
A couple of other journalists were reportedly looking into it, and strangely enough, they also died of heart attacks within a relatively short period of time.
Wait, 3 journalists, all investigating the same conspiracy theory, all dying of heart attacks? That's a lot of coincidences.
It's certainly peculiar, and for those who believe in Project Bluebeam, it's seen as evidence that Monist was on to something dangerous, that he and his fellow journalists were silenced to prevent them from revealing the truth.
So their deaths just added more fuel to the fire.
You could say that. It became part of the narrative, a chilling example of what supposedly happens to those who dare to speak out against the powerful forces behind Project Bluebeam.
So we've got this theory, Project Bluebeam, laid out by a journalist who dies under mysterious circumstances, and then a couple of his colleagues who were looking into it also die suddenly. It's a pretty compelling story, even if the details sound far-fetched. What do you make of it all? Is Project Bluebeam a genuine threat, or just a paranoid fantasy?
Well, let's be realistic. The idea of a literal Project Bluebeam with all its intricate details seems highly improbable.
Yeah, it does sound a bit too much like something out of a movie.
But that doesn't mean we should dismiss the underlying themes altogether.
Runian.
The concerns about technological manipulation, psychological warfare, the potential for global control, those are all very real issues. Even if the specifics of Project Bluebeam are unlikely, the potential for these types of technologies to be used for nefarious purposes is something we should all be aware of.
That's a good point. So, we've covered the 4 steps of Project Bluebeam. We've delved into the story of Serge Monist. But how does all of this connect to the real world? Are there any events or trends that support these ideas? That's what I'd like to explore next.
There are definitely some interesting parallels, like take the whole UFO thing.
Right, all those UFO sightings?
Exactly. And the fact that the government is being more open about UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena.
It's definitely been a hot topic. Remember when the Pentagon released that report a few years back?
Yeah, that got people talking.
It definitely made you wonder.
And while a lot of those sightings can probably explained away, the fact that the government is acknowledging the possibility of something unexplained is, well, it's interesting.
It's definitely intriguing. And it makes you think, with all the technology we have today, it's getting harder and harder to tell what's real and what's not. Like, take holographic technology. We were talking about those massive sky projections, how difficult they would be to create.
All right.
But holographic technology is getting more sophisticated all the time.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, we see these incredibly realistic holograms being used in entertainment, advertising, even communication.
So while those global scale projections might still be out of reach, the potential for creating convincing illusions is definitely growing.
And then there's the whole issue of disinformation and media manipulation.
Ah, yes.
It seems like every day there's a new story about fake news or deep fakes or online propaganda. It's getting harder and harder to know what to believe, especially online.
It's a real challenge, and that's a key part of monist's theory, right? The idea that the media would be complicit in this deception, spreading disinformation, shaping public perception to create that climate of fear and panic.
Right, like a massive propaganda campaign. And while we may not have evidence of something that coordinated happening right now, and we do see examples of media bias, selective reporting, misinformation spreading online.
Both intentionally and unintentionally.
Exactly. It's like we're constantly being bombarded with information from all sides, and it's hard to filter out the noise and figure out what's actually true.
And with social media algorithms tailoring content to our preferences, it's easy to get trapped in these echo chambers where we only see information that confirms our existing beliefs.
Which makes us more susceptible to manipulation, right?
Yeah,
Because we're less likely to question information that aligns with what we already think.
exactly. And when you add in the emotional element, the fear, the anxiety, it can cloud our judgment even further, make us more vulnerable to persuasion. So even if we don't have a literal Project Bluebeam scenario playing out, the underlying elements, the technological manipulation, the media manipulation, the psychological influence, those are all very real and present in our world today.
So it's not just about holographic gods in the sky or fake alien invasions. It's about being aware of the more subtle forms of manipulation that are already happening.
Exactly. And being aware is the first step to protecting ourselves. We need to be critical thinkers, we need to question our sources, consider multiple perspectives, and be wary of anything that seems too sensational or too good to be true.
It's like that old saying, trust but verify.
Exactly. But with so much information coming at us from all directions, it can be tough to know where to even start.
Right. It can feel overwhelming.
Yeah.
So are there any specific strategies or resources you'd recommend for people who want to become more discerning consumers of information? Like, how can we actually put this into practice?
Well, one of the most important things is to diversify your information sources. Don't just rely on one news outlet or one social media platform. Branch out, seek out different perspectives, both mainstream and alternative.
So it's about getting a broader view, not getting stuck in that echo chamber.
Exactly. And there are a lot of great resources out there that can help. Fact-checking websites, media literacy organizations, they can help you evaluate the credibility of information and identify potential biases.
Those are good resources to know about.
Yeah.
And I think it's also important to be aware of our own biases. We all have preconceived notions and beliefs that can influence how we interpret information.
Absolutely.
It's important to acknowledge those biases and be willing to challenge our own assumptions.
Critical thinking involves questioning everything, including our own beliefs. Being open to new information, being willing to change our minds when presented with compelling evidence.
So even if we don't need to worry about holographic gods or a staged alien invasion, we do need to be vigilant about the more subtle forms of manipulation that are already present in our world. It's about being informed, being aware, and being critical thinkers.
I completely agree. The real threat may not be a dramatic Hollywood-style takeover, but a gradual erosion of trust, critical thinking, and independent thought.
Okay, we've talked about the technological and media aspects of Project Bluebeam, but I'm curious about the psychological factors at play here. Why are conspiracy theories in general so compelling to some people? What makes them resonate with certain individuals?
That's a great question. And there are a number of psychological factors that contribute to the appeal of conspiracy theories. One key factor is the need for certainty and control. In a world that often feels chaotic and unpredictable, conspiracy theories offer simple explanations. They provide a sense of order, a framework for understanding complex events and making sense of the world around us.
It's like having a narrative that ties everything together, even if that narrative is based on speculation and conjecture.
Exactly. Conspiracy theories can provide a sense of coherence and predictability in a world that often feels random and overwhelming.
And I imagine the allure of hidden knowledge also plays a role.
Oh, absolutely. Conspiracy theories often present themselves as revealing hidden truths that are being suppressed by powerful forces. This can make believers feel like they're in the know, that they have access to knowledge that the masses are being denied. It can be very appealing to feel like you're one step ahead, that you see things that others don't.
And then there's the distrust of authority, which is a recurring theme in many conspiracy theories.
Definitely. Distrust of authority is often fueled by real-world events, government scandals, cover-ups, abuses of power. When people feel like they've been lied to or betrayed by those in positions of authority, they become more likely to seek out alternative explanations, even if those explanations are far-fetched or unconventional.
So it's not necessarily about being gullible or paranoid, but rather about a lack of trust in the institutions that are supposed to be serving the public interest.
Exactly. And that distrust can create fertile ground for conspiracy theories to take root and flourish. When people feel like they can't trust official sources of information, they turn to alternative sources, which may or may not be reliable.
It's a complex issue with a lot of contributing factors. But understanding those factors can help us better navigate the world of information and be more discerning about what we choose to believe.
Absolutely. It's about developing a healthy sense of skepticism, questioning everything, but not dismissing everything out of hand. It's about being critical thinkers and engaging in thoughtful, evidence-based analysis.
So we've talked about the technology, the media, the psychology, the historical context of Project Bluebeam. It's been a fascinating exploration, but I'm curious, are there any other aspects of this theory that you find particularly intriguing or relevant to our current world?
One aspect that I find particularly thought-provoking is the idea of a manufactured crisis being used to justify a power grab. While the specific details of Project Bluebeam may be far-fetched, the concept of a false flag operation, a staged event designed to deceive the public and create a pretext for action, is a recurring theme throughout history.
You're right. There have been numerous examples of governments and powerful groups using deception and manipulation to achieve their objectives.
Exactly. And in today's world, where information travels at lightning speed and can be easily manipulated, the potential for this type of deception is even greater. We need to be aware of the possibility that events may not always be as they seem, and that there may be hidden agendas at play.
It's a sobering thought. So, while we might not be facing an imminent threat of holographic alien invaders, the underlying principles of Project Bluebeam, the potential for technological and media manipulation, the exploitation of fear and uncertainty, and the erosion of trust are all very real and relevant to our current world.
I couldn't agree more.
It is a lot to think about. So if these manipulations are possible, what can we do to protect ourselves? How do we become more resilient?
It all starts with education and awareness.
So like becoming more media literate, being able to, really analyze information.
Exactly. We have to develop that healthy skepticism, question everything we see and hear, especially from sources trying to, shape our opinions.
But there's just so much information out there. It's overwhelming. Where do you even begin?
Diversify your sources. Don't rely on just one news outlet or social media platform. Get different perspectives, mainstream and alternative.
So getting the full picture, avoiding those echo chambers?
Exactly. And, there are fact-checking websites, media literacy organizations. They can help you figure out what's credible.
Good to know. And I think it's also important to be aware of our own biases. We all have them, those preconceived ideas that can color how we see things.
Absolutely.
Got to be willing to challenge our own assumptions.
Critical thinking means questioning everything, even our own beliefs. Be open to new information. Change your mind when the evidence is there.
So maybe we don't need to worry about holographic alien invasions, but we do need to watch out for these more subtle forms of manipulation. Being informed, being aware, and thinking critically. Those are the keys.
Couldn't agree more. The real threat may not be some dramatic takeover, but a slow erosion of trust, critical thinking, and independent thought. That's what we need to guard against.
Well said. So we've dug deep into Project Bluebeam, looked at technology, psychology, all of it. What are some key things you'd want our listeners to walk away with?
I think the big takeaway is, even if Project Bluebeam is far-fetched, the idea of manipulation and control, that's very real. Technology, media, they can be used to influence us in powerful ways. Just being aware of that is a huge first step.
And even if we don't believe in this grand conspiracy, it's good to think about how these ideas can still affect us.
Conspiracy theories play on our fears, our anxieties, our distrust. It's important to recognize that. Approach these theories with a critical eye. Don't just accept everything at face value.
It's not just about debunking theories, it's about building up our own mental defenses, becoming more resilient.
Exactly. Be critical thinkers, question everything, look at the evidence, and come to your own conclusions.
That's a great note to end on. This has been a deep dive into a truly fascinating topic, Project Bluebeam, the potential for manipulation in our world, and how we can become more discerning, more critical thinkers. While a fake alien invasion might seem like something out of a movie, the real concerns about control, deception, and the erosion of trust, those are very real. and something we all need to be aware of.
I couldn't agree more. The best defense against manipulation is a well-informed, critically thinking public. So stay curious, stay skeptical, keep asking those questions.